Let's go.
Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. I'm your host, David Horsager. Join me as I sit down with influential leaders from around the world to discuss why leaders and organizations fail, top tactics for high performance, and how you can become an even more trusted leader. Welcome to the Trusted Leader Show. We have a very special guest today, and he's not just one of the world's leading futurists. He's a friend. He's been a researcher. He's been a known thought leader. I'm going to read just a little bit about him. One of the world's leading futurists on global trends and innovation. He's a New York Times bestseller. He's written 7 books. We're going to get into a couple of his books today and some thoughts behind that. He's been around the world as a thought leader and really futurist. And I think we think about this. His name is Dan Burrus. And first of all, just a welcome, Dan. Thanks for being on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Well, we've talked research. I can still remember one of our drives after both speaking at an event and one of our drives to the airport talking about our basis for what we do and why we believe in it. But, you know, looking at you, a futurist, and I remember back in even the 80s, you were one of the only futurists that correctly made 20 or so claims that actually all came true in technology. So even with a futurist, let's go back before going forward. Tell me about that. And then I've got a couple other thoughts backward before we get to some of the newest trends we want to hear from you. Today's show is going to be packed with some great stuff. I know that just because of knowing Dan.
Yeah, well, again, research, this Burrus research, which is, 37 years old now. Holy cow. That was I've started 6 companies over the years. This is my core company. The other ones I've sold. And I spent a year doing research before ever starting it, researching all areas of biology, chemistry, physics, technology, because that was what I taught in my early days. I taught biology and physics. So I did the research, came up with my methodologies, and then launched with my 20 core technologies that would drive economic value creation going forward. And if you look at that initial list, which was 1983, you would say AI, genetic engineering, digital technology, fiber optics. I mean, if you look at the list, it's still a list. And even nanotechnology was on that, 83. But that's because I use a scientific approach to doing it. And I actually, this is an interesting thing, I use biology to help me do it. Because in biology, there is a way of categorizing things so that you know, for example, whether if you saw an animal you had never seen in your life before, you would know if it would have a live birth or lay an egg if you paid attention in elementary school. Well, that's because of what you learned in biology. Well, I applied that to emerging technology so that you could make sense out of it. And again, I've been researching all the way along. I'm not a one-guy company, and that's 7 books, and I've written an article a week for years, for decades, a lot of writing. And I think the reason I've got a track record for being right about where things are going is, number one, I leave out the parts I can be wrong about. I focus on what I know I can be right about, and that's part of what I teach. And secondly, and I think this is true for you too, so I want to say this for both of us. I think we both, now I'll speak for me, but I think you'll chime in. I was lucky I found out why I was put on the planet. And that is, I'm here to teach. So I can't help myself. So instead of me just doing it and letting you all be amazed, I'm excited about being on the show and writing books and articles because I'm there to help others learn how to do it. That's what excites me.
Well, that's what excites you. But one thing I know about you is you're not just a teacher to teach. We know lots of speakers that have written a book that have never read one practically, right? But you actually are a learner, which makes you a great teacher, I think. And that's the fun.
They're the same word.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
You learn, actually the act of teaching is learning because you learn things as you teach it.
Right. Yeah, one of the best ways, and I tell this to the kids, hey, you number 2 kid, teach this to number 3 kid because you'll learn by teaching, right? And then when they've got, this, I'm going to jump around here because I know you and we're going to jump around a little bit, but I think this just touches on your idea that you often use hard trend certainties I think this is unique about you, to accelerate innovation and results. And I think something interesting is you've really kind of differentiated hard trend to soft trend. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and again, this is 37 years of research, and I've instead of me saying, look, I'm the only guy with the right trends, everyone else is wrong. I didn't do that. What I did is I found a way of taking all trends and putting them into one of two pots so that you could make sense out of them. Because most of the time, people don't pay a lot of attention to trends because they may or may not happen. And let's face it, you can't predict the future is a general thought, which is not correct, but that's what they think. So what I found is that all trends are either hard trends based on what I call a future fact that will happen. The key is it cannot be changed. Or it is a soft trend based on an assumption about the future that may or may not happen. It doesn't say it won't happen, but it really changes how you look at risk and driving innovation.
So give us an example from a business leader.
I'll give you a couple examples, but let me just kind of weave a couple of other concepts. A second key related concept that I've helped people understand is that a trend by itself is academic. I'm bored, you're bored. When you attach a trend to an actionable opportunity, it bursts into life. So a hard trend, what does it do? It lets you see disruptions before they disrupt, allowing you then to have a choice to be either the disruptor or the disrupted, because it's going to happen anyway. And the other type, so the opportunity is then I can see problems before I have them, so I can pre-solve them instead of letting them play out. Let's face it, how many times have people said, I knew that would happen, and I would say, why did you let it? And then there are the soft trends, which may or may not happen. And the beautiful opportunity of a soft trend is if you don't like it, you can change it. And a quick example now. All right, let's take healthcare costs in the United States over the last 10 years. Been going up, 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 up. By the way, that's a trend. Now, if you think it's a hard trend, unstoppable, you spend all of your time trying to figure out how are we going to pay for it as it gets worse as the baby boomers get older. But if you realize, actually, that's a soft trend, you can change it if you want to. And then you start looking at technology, like, for example, blockchain could be used to take our healthcare system in the US, which is got very low trust, very low transparency, that aspirin actually costs you $22. If you knew that, you'd have your spouse bring it. And if we use blockchain, you could have transparency, higher trust, more security. And by the way, costs would go down. Now I could give you other ways we could use technology to do that. And by the way, there is a startup that's doing that with blockchain with 100 million startup in money. So obviously there's some bets placed on that one already. But the point is, if you don't like it, you can change it. So let's say that you're in the restaurant business right now with COVID. And sales, whoa, down, you're locked down, especially if you're in California or something, because I'm here in San Diego right now. And you're saying, well, wow, it's just going to keep going down. We got to figure out how we're going to ride that out. However, going down is a soft trend. You could do something about that. And the restaurant owners that I've talked to and got them into doing takeout and really upping their game on home deliveries and things like that have actually gone the other direction. So soft trends, don't like them, you can change them. I like that. Hard trends, you can see problems before they happen and pre-solve them. You can see disruptions before they disrupt, giving you amazing opportunities.
So what are a couple more hard trends? I see those soft trends that we can change, and that's what we love, because actually we can think they're hard, but it's actually almost people have to have a growth mindset for this, right? It's like, I got to see that I can actually change something for all these soft trends instead of just saying it's going to be that way. But what about a hard trend you can't do anything about? Tell a couple more real examples.
Yeah, exactly. Again, I like to take complexity and get it to a simplified form so that we can make use of it and internalize it. So basically, there's three categories of hard trends. Demographics, for example, there's 68 million baby boomers. Now, again, you've heard the phrase 78 million, but 10 million have already died, so you can't count them. You know, they're on the other end of the spectrum versus Gen Z, who are, growing and having kids. And they're not going to get younger. They're going to continue to age. And we can predict a lot of problems and pre-solve them, or we can let them play out. For example, a lot of people will be retiring in our organizations now, for sure. And someone might say, and here's a really good teaching moment I'm going to take right now for everyone listening. So they might say, okay, the hard trend is people in our organization, there are going to be a lot of leaders retiring, and they're going to be taking their knowledge and wisdom with them. Well, now here's the interesting thing. They stated a hard trend and a soft trend. Because when you hear the word and, or there's a comma in a trend statement, you probably got a hard and a soft, and it probably starts with a hard and ends with a soft. So let me just give you the example going back to that. There's a lot of people in an organization that are going to be retiring. Hard trend, guaranteed, that's going to happen. They're going to take their knowledge and wisdom with them. Well, you could do something about that through mentoring, creating a knowledge base, creating a wisdom base, or you could let them leave with that knowledge and wisdom. So knowing the difference makes all the difference. So demographics is one, and I could get into that whole thing, but there's another one. This will shock people: government regulation. Government regulation. Because when we have a law put into place, there's a whole bunch of opportunities. Elon Musk, every business he's started since PayPal, he has received hundreds of millions of dollars. Actually, I've added it up, 4.2 billion so far from the government, because instead of looking at a regulation or a law and getting bummed out, which most of us do, one of the things I teach in my anticipatory leader system is that opposites work better. So instead of looking at all the things you don't like about that law, go the opposite. Look at what you do like, and you might find some amazing opportunities. By the way, you might say, well, you can't predict the future of regulation. I would say, yes, you can. You just can't predict it all. The things I don't know don't empower me. I would like to know the things I do know. For example, let me ask our viewers and listeners right now. Do you think is going to be more regulation around cybersecurity? Well, yeah. Why? Because there's some hard trends at play Democrats and Republicans can't ignore. But there are some other things that we could debate. So I think the power of a hard trend, and I'm going to give you the third one in a second, but the power of a hard trend is it gives you certainty in a world filled with uncertainty. And strategy based on uncertainty has high risk. Strategy based on certainty has low risk and high reward. So the third category, I like to fulfill my promise here, is technology.
I trust.
Exactly. Technology, and technology is literally changing how we live, work, and play. It's transformative. Are we going to be putting more in the cloud? Well, yeah. And if you don't like AI, will it go away? No. So we know a lot. And after 5G, is that it? No, there'll be something called 6G, followed by 7G. And if you follow some of the things I've taught, you can even see the timeframes of when they'll come out, because I've been accurate on that since 1G. And there's a way to do that. So the key, again, is you have those three categories: demographics, you have regulations, and you have a technology. All of those give you amazing opportunities to see the future and to develop, the game-changing opportunities.
So, you wrote and talk a lot about, I'm going to just read something here about the Anticipatory Organization, your book, because co-founder of Fast Company, Alan Weber, said, if you're in business and you're not thinking about disruption, you're not paying attention. And if you haven't read the Anticipatory Organization, you haven't learned how to think about and get ahead of the disruption that's headed your way. Read this book. Now, this was written before COVID, this pandemic. How do you anticipate these kind of things? We had a pandemic. A lot of people did not anticipate, but what say you about this in conjunction with the Anticipatory Organization and your model?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple of things. Number one, they often called it a black swan event. And they called it a black swan because supposedly it comes out of nowhere. But actually, black swans never come out of nowhere. Imagine right now in your mind a large lake. And near you are all a bunch of white swans and ducks and geese, but the black swans are on the other shore. You're probably not even looking at those. You're looking at all the ones that are cool, real near you, because most people aren't looking far out. They're looking close in. The black swan is swimming your way, but you don't see it yet. You don't see it until it's all of a sudden it's right there. Holy cow, there's a black swan here. So in December, our satellites, and by the way, I am a advisor to the Joint Chiefs, and I'm on the Futurist group of the Pentagon, and so I do have access, and I can just say that we were able to see what was happening from the satellites in China and what were, the morgues and all the things that were taking place. Something was going on. In January, it was known. We started to talk about it, but not that much. In other words, it was there. We were not really looking far out. We weren't looking at the other side of the lake, but not everybody. Some were looking at the other side of the lake. And if you were listening to my reports in March, I was talking about we were going to get a painful lesson in exponential, because we knew back then that unchecked, the virus would spread double every 3 to 4 days. By the way, it does that unless you wear a mask and you do physical distancing and those kinds of things. So to go to trust and your wheelhouse, we have been in the information age. And I'm not really talking in just a political way here. I'm really talking about technology. And that is, we've entered, especially over the last 5 years or so, maybe even 6, increasingly the disinformation age. And I would say that misinformation is inaccurate information. Disinformation, I would define as believed misinformation. And that's a lot of that has to do with AI. It has to do with the algorithms and Facebook and other social platforms that are designed to get you engaged. And unfortunately, love and harmony don't get us very engaged. But anger, fear, hate, that gets us coming back for more. So you get more of what you get, and it feeds you more and gets you more engaged, although none of it's vetted. So is that a hard trend we can't stop? Is trust, because I'm going to get right to my opinion on trust right now, because I know that's your expertise. And by the way, thank you for doing what you've done by creating the Institute and by bringing this important subject to so many. And that is trust going down is indeed soft. Now that mean will it continue to go down? Oh yeah, it surely can. But there's something we could do about it. And that means you need some strategies. You need to, hope is not a strategy. So diminished trust is indeed a complete soft trend. Highly likely, unless we do some things. And again, you might say as a listener, I can't control Facebook. I can't control what different politicians say. I can't control that. And I would say, all right, I don't want a list of things I can't control. I want a list of things I can control. I don't want a list of things I'm uncertain about. I want a list of things I'm certain about. I don't want a list of things I can't do. I want a list of things I can do. And that's why, David, I am just like you've got trust as the big thing you're trying to help people to do and to learn to work with. Again, love that. I'm trying to get people to have an anticipatory mindset. Because you're either a reactor or you're an anticipator. And most people don't realize that agility is a reactive strategy. The reason you're agile is you have to be able to move quickly when something is coming at you. Agile athletes are, that's defense, it's not offense. And I'm not putting down agility. You need to be agile. I didn't say I could predict everything. I said I leave out the parts I can be wrong about. There are a lot of things you can't predict. Well, then you better be agile. But that's only one side of the strategy coin. That's the defense. But if you look at the last 20 years of Super Bowl winners, it's been the offense teams that have been the major winners. You need offense. That's where anticipation comes in, anticipating. So it's not like get rid of agility. It's like you really need to be able to work both sides of the court here. I would like you to be anticipatory leaders, not just reactionary or fast reactionary. And most of us have found out with COVID and with so many things coming so fast, no matter how agile you are, it hasn't been helping that much. but those that have been anticipatory have actually done quite well.
Hey, it's Ann with the Trust Edge team here. As you know, we are passionate about helping you and your team perform at your best. And that's why David wrote his new book, Trusted Leader. This true-to-life parable follows the story of a CEO who uncovers the root issue threatening his organization's success. And in the back half of the book, David provides a roadmap for even how to solve those root issues. Get Trusted Leader for your team, your organization, or even just for yourself at trustedleaderbook.com.
Well, I want to recommend this book, Anticipatory Organization, to everybody, every leader, every person. We need to start thinking this way, but let's get into a couple more tips that you can give from Anticipatory Organization. As you teach anticipatory leadership, anticipatory thinking, and this anticipatory model that really, touches everything. And I would argue to be trusted long-term, you're going to have to be able to be an anticipatory leader. So that's why I align with this and believe in it so much. So let's jump in. Do you have a couple more takeaways we can think of to become more anticipatory? And I want people need to buy the book.
Yes. Well, let me start with something I'd like you all to do after this podcast. All right, let's cut to the chase of what I'd like you to do. And I'd like you to consider blocking out 1 hour a week. 1 hour a week is doable. And by the way, if you don't put it in your calendar or mark it down, it won't happen. Why? You'll be putting out another fire. You'll be crisis managing. But this isn't about crisis management. It's about opportunity management. And it's about finding certainty in a seemingly uncertain world. And in that hour, I'd like you to list the hard trend certainties will happen. Pick from demographics or pick from technology or even regulation. Again, you can find more on burrus.com if you want to find out more about how to do it. Again, I'm writing an article a week, so you can go to burrus.com and find blogs and or join. I've got 1.3 million followers on LinkedIn. Join me there. So there's plenty of ways of getting information about what that stuff is. So here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to make a list of things you are certain about. What are the hard trends? And remember, trend by itself has no value. I wanted an opportunity attached to it, an opportunity that you can take action on. And then, you know what you'll get? You'll get a list. And big lists never get done. So I would like you to refine it down. Find the low-hanging fruit, something you can take action on. Pick one thing and take action on it, and you will be amazed at what you'll see. So there is an actionable tip I'll give right now, a strategy. And within the anticipatory model, I actually, like in my anticipatory leader learning system, which I'm happy to say is an award winner, I've got 28 lessons in there, and hard trends is one of 28, soft trends is one of 28. They are the foundation to it. But as I mentioned a little earlier, opposites work better is one of those. Because how do you be more innovative? People say, I want you to be creative. Yeah, well, how do I do that? You need some tools. For example, one of the things that I teach is take your biggest problem and skip it.
I was going to ask about that next.
And I use skip it. Oh man, I use it all the time. And it is so powerful. It's amazing. So there are two elements to it very quickly. One element is skipping it altogether. In other words, you think you need to do it, but that's an assumption. Again, maybe is it a future fact? I need an office. I need a staff. I need funding. I can't start a business without investors. Hey, I've started 6 companies. 5 were profitable in the first year. 4 were national leaders in the first year. One of them was in aviation. I had 37 national locations in the first year, and I never had any investors. Let's face it, I started out teaching. I didn't even have any money. So there are ways of doing it. So if you assume you need all that, that is not a future fact. That's an assumption, and maybe that's holding you back. Actually, most of the things that are holding you back right now can be found by looking in the mirror in the morning. You are holding you back. Most people would say money is my biggest problem. And I would say, well, the reason money is your biggest problem and probably always is your biggest problem is because that's not your problem. Instead, what is the real problem? And it may be if you're trying to get money from me and I'm the CFO and you want to fund your project. And as the CFO, I'm trained to say no, because I'm trying to keep the company money. You haven't used certainty to help you to sell your idea. You haven't said, here are some things, some future facts that we know. And by the way, there's a way to get them to agree with you immediately, because you learn to, instead of giving your opinion, you learn to speak in future facts. Very powerful. And when you're speaking in future facts, by the way, that's a way you can get people to trust you more, because you're not giving your opinion. And then you're saying, what I want the money for is a disruption that I know will happen. Here's why, future facts. And if we don't do something, someone else will. What's the downside? And then you get into the cost of, what's the real cost of the no here, when we know it's a future fact? And the cost of the no always exceeds the cost of the yes. Because again, financial people they all know that saying yes costs money, saying no costs nothing. We need to reverse that. Opposites work better. Getting back to skip it. Another element of skip it is whatever problem you've got, that's not it. There's another one. You're not solving the right one. So for a simple example, my niece, Hallie, she's got her job and she can't seem to save money. She called me the other day and said, Uncle Dan, I can't save any money. I'm really trying hard. And she knows it's possible because her older sister, Audrey, can save money like crazy, but Hallie can't. And she said, I'm really trying. And I said, you're working on the wrong problem. You should work on how you spend money instead. She was working on how she saves. She should have done the opposite and worked on how she spent. So is your problem really your problem, or is there another one? And I've been good at solving impossible problems, because I find what the real problem is, or I help people skip it altogether. I have always had a problem with spelling. How could I write 7 books and thousands of articles? I skipped that. I have somebody check me.
Perfect.
I skipped it.
I love it. Well, this is a good place. I want to go backward to go forward, and I wrote down, okay, because we're going to pull back to trust here. Then everybody listening, you're going to love this. You're going to get to some future tech trends that Dan has noticed and where you can find all those. We're going to touch on those. But before we do, everything we talk about is trust as the leading indicator. It's never a leadership issue. It's always a trust issue. It's never a sales issue, a diversity issue, an innovation issue. It's never even a marketing issue. The only way to amplify a marketing message is increase trust in the message. The only way to deal with diversity in a way that doesn't pit people against each other is increase trust. We have to deal with the trust issue. But you said something about trust back before I was doing even my really graduate research, 1989, I got a quote on you. Hope I'm not going out of left field here. Trust is the glue that holds the net-enabled knowledge economy together. Speak to that, if you will.
Yeah, and by the way, still true. So how do you get people, when I started working in the web, now the internet actually has been around for a long time. That was around before I started in 1983. Universities primarily used it. So the internet itself is not new. The web is, and the ability to do web pages and all that stuff. That's what broke it loose and made it go crazy. So when we started looking at e-commerce in the beginning, and I started working with banks and credit card companies and Visa, MasterCard. How do we get people to actually buy online? And it was easy. It's about trust. And one of the ways that you can get people to trust, because how do you get them to trust going online? Remember, this is back in the early 90s. And the answer was you guarantee that they won't lose money if it turns out to be something fake. In other words, as a credit card holder, if you're using your credit card number to buy something and it turns out to be illegitimate, I'll cover it. They did that back then, got people to start purchasing online. They gave us trust in that way. So still today, whether it's in an organization, whether it is getting advice, whether it is purchasing online, whether it's on Amazon or anything else, I mean, how do you know you're going to get it delivered? How are you going to know it's okay? By the way, someone that says we have a return policy, that elevates trust. We have no return policy, that decreases trust. So what I want to do to make this strategic, I would say I want to look for, as a leader, any opportunity to elevate trust, whether it's within a person, because it's all about people. In this technology world, it's still a human world. It's still all about trust. if it's about getting people to go to my restaurant as the pandemic lifts, and it will, how do I get them to come back or go into my retail facility? And that is, I got to make sure they trust they aren't going to get sick coming in.
So what can we do in this coming back from pandemic? What can people do to increase trust? You've listed a few ideas, but what do you think they can do in the new economy, in this new future world? What are people going to need to do differently?
Well, one of the things, if you're in retail, and by the way, we think retail is dead, and I would say, no, it just doesn't. Actually, I think the good old days of brick and mortar retail are ahead of us, but they just don't look like the days behind us. Actually, that was kind of boring. That's why they were having trouble in the first place. They hadn't really paid much attention to the customer experience. They didn't use technology to put some pizzazz into it, as well as empower their people with knowledge and perhaps some augmented reality glasses that can give them information to give you when you're asking me a question and I actually have an answer. Let's face it, when you try to buy a car, you usually know more about the car than the person that's selling you the car. So no wonder they had trouble. So I think what we need is high trust, and high trust when it comes to facilities and going into places is we're probably going to have certified trust by doing wipe downs and doing cleanings. And just like when you go into a grocery store, you have more trust because of that plastic that's going between you and the person behind. And they put lines so that you have to stay apart from people. And that all elevates trust. And what I think will happen, and this is not a hard trend, but I think it's highly likely, and I have not shared this with anybody yet. I'm about to start doing that. I'm going to give you a scoop here.
All right. Inside scoop.
Yeah. How do you get people to get vaccinated? Because there's a lot of distrust about that, a lot of bad information about the vaccines and so on out there, and a lot of fear, and a lot of people saying, I'm not doing that. And so how do you get people to get vaccinated when there's all of that and you can't really make them? And well, the answer is, if you notice, when people get vaccinated, they're getting an official card, not only to help them go back to get the second vaccination, but it shows they've been vaccinated. And that will also end up as part of your smartphone with facial ID and fingerprint as well. Not yet, you see, it will. And so if you want to go to a baseball game, football game, basketball game, you want to go to a concert, what do you got to do? You got to show you got your shot. If you don't get in. Mm-hmm. Well, that will motivate a lot of people to get there. Well, I'm just telling you. Yeah, you're going to start seeing that thing happen because we need to get at least 80% of the people vaccinated to get enough so that this isn't going crazy. Because we could have said, I don't want the polio shot. We could have said, I don't want the mumps and measles. We could have said no to a whole bunch of things. And you and I may not have ever been born, but it may not be around. And we still have the ability to say no. But in the age of disinformation that we're in now, there's going to be other ways of motivating you to do that. And let me give you one last little thing, a personal one I'll give you. I have a college professor friend of mine that is still around, thankfully, great guy, and he's in his late 80s, he and his wife, and they were telling me about 2 weeks ago that in their retirement community, they're going to be able to get the shot by the end of the year. And they were excited about that because he's a PhD, he knows what's going on. But then his daughter's kid, who happens to be 28, so she's not a kid really, sent him a text saying the CDC just shared all this bad stuff about it and said it came from the CDC and shared this document. He luckily called me and said, boy, now I'm worried about it. And I said, well, I've never heard the CDC say all of that. Can you ask ask her where she got her information? And she said, well, we got it from the CDC. And I said, well, ask her again. And actually, a friend of mine told me it was from the CDC. Well, ask her where the friend got it. Anyway, it turned out she got it from the internet. And the CDC never said that. Well, my point is, he and his wife were about to not get the shot out of fear. Yep. And that might have killed him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's almost 90. He's in that range. So, this can be a very bad thing. So again, I can't, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I am saying we need to elevate trust and we need to rely on going back to my methodology. There are future facts. So we have facts and we have assumptions. And there's a whole science to assumptions as well as future facts. Again, that's part of what I teach, but I'm also giving you a heads up for David for your work. And that is, assumptions are unbelievable because for example, one of the things that I teach is there's more than one kind of assumption. And I like to make things simple so people remember them. And I've got a theme here. I call them hard assumptions versus soft assumptions. So a soft assumption is either based on your past, what you've always known. By the way, that may not be true today, but it's always been good so far. Because remember, technology changes reality. There may be a new reality now. Some new facts. For example, you can't trust the internet over anything. Well, I can tell you right now, the military has realized actually you can get more trust by getting in there with the right level of security than you can using the old system. So a hard assumption is you did your research. So my friend, he luckily reached out to me because he didn't do his research. He was taking it from someone who heard something, but from a trusted source. That was, his daughter's kid is a trusted source. But on the other end, you got to do your fact checking. So a soft assumption is it's from a person, from a trusted person, but you haven't done some extra checking. Today, with the internet being what it is, I'm just saying, check your facts. And I have a responsibility, as you do, because I give speeches, I do consulting, I work with leaders all over the world trying to help them out. And I can tell you right now, I quadruple check again everything I'm sharing because it's important. And I'm a researcher, so I know the power of that. So I'm just saying for all of you, double and triple and quadruple check. So if it's an assumption, at least bring it up to the hard assumption. And maybe you'll find there's some things, what you'll find is there's actually some future facts too that you can rely on.
Well, I think people not just, behind the assumptions, they have certain things they want to be true. And so that can motivate them finding facts that align with that desire without being any more true.
Well, yeah, there's been some recent studies, meaning within the last several months, that were pretty wide scale to find out where's a lot of the disinformation coming from. And it's from people that are their primary news source is the internet. And the internet doesn't have fact checking. It has it kind of. But, it's not like where you've got to make sure your sources are good before you put it out there.
Mm-hmm. No accountability.
There's no accountability. And of course, it can be weaponized. And so we've got to be careful. So I think in this age of disinformation, as a leader, you need to make sure you are doing fact checking as a leader before you share things with your people, so that you can have the confidence to make that statement and not have it come back and bite you.
We've talked about this some, but one last question on the core of your work before we get into my final lightning round and getting to your tech trends that I'm super excited about. But, you've touched on this, but is there anything else you would say? Because I think people are finding this disruption is happening. Obviously, it's happened over the last year, but the thing is, disruption's happening ahead. It's going to happen in a year. It's going to happen in 5 years. It's going to happen in 10. Pandemic will be gone. We're still going to deal with disruption. So you have some thoughts around turning disruption you thought was outside your control into being inside your control. And we touched on that, and partly it's the mindset of seeing that it's inside your control. But is there anything else you would just mention about kind of dealing with disruption proactively?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, just a quick comment on the trend part, and we'll get more into that in a minute, but I want to touch on it. And that is that actually I have an ebook coming out on this, and I've already been speaking on it, but the pandemic has accelerated most of the technology trends that I've been sharing with people for a long time. E-commerce has been accelerated easily 10 years. Why? Well, we were locked down, of course. But actually, I've got 16 of the 25 hard trends that we'll talk about in a minute that have been accelerated anywhere between 5 and 10 years in just a few months. By the way, why did they get accelerated? And the answer is because we were forced to change. You see, organizations are run by humans, and humans don't like to change. We only change when we have to. Well, the pandemic forced us to change. It forced us to lock down. It forced us to do homeschooling. It forced us to change. And we were forced to go digital in new ways. So that forced change is what caused the pandemic acceleration of these trends. And by the way, when trends are accelerated, not just months, but years in a short amount of time, what happened? The opportunities have been accelerated as well. So I just wanted to make sure that you realize right now, I'm telling you, there's more opportunity than there's ever been on the planet Earth. And you used the correct word a few minutes ago, David, and that is it's all about mindset. And you've got to have your mindset right. And then now to address the word disruption. I actually want every one of our viewers and listeners to become what I call positive disruptors. Here's what I mean by that. Does Jeff Bezos, CEO of Amazon, see disruption as negative? No, it's all the people he's disrupting. You see, you're either going to be a disruptor or the disrupted. There is no middle. There's no middle. Just like you're either going to be more relevant or less relevant. There is no middle. And some people might be coasting. Let's just remember, you can only coast downhill and there is a bottom. Okay, just remember that. So here's what I want you to do. With hard trends, you can see the disruptions before they disrupt well in advance. And I mean, I got 37 years of showing all of those. I mean, you go back, remember my Techno Trends book that came out in 93?
Way back.
93. Yeah. I mean, look, there's a little part in chapter 3 that says Blockbuster is busted. And if you read about it, I describe Netflix and put accurate timeframes on it. And when that book came out, I was speaking at the American Booksellers Association. It's a different name today, but there were 10,000 booksellers. This was 2 years before Amazon was launched. And I said in 2 years, there'll be a virtual bookstore. Now, again, I couldn't say it would be called Amazon. You got to leave out the parts you can be wrong about. But I could say what happened. Why? Because I could see the tools were there. And if the tools are there to do it, someone's going to do it.
And you should have. What happened?
Somebody else. Somebody's going to do that. So here's what the phrase on, I want you to be a positive disruptor, creating the transformations that need to happen to create a better future for your family, for yourselves, for your employees, and for your business, and to increase your relevancy and your growth. So rather than be the disrupted, which I don't think is a good option, although I would like you to have a choice, I want you all to become positive disruptors and make it better.
Perfect. We got to get to those trends. Let's hear about those trends before we wrap up the day. And then we're going to touch on them, and then we're going to show people where to find them, Dan. I am so excited about this. You've got 20 tech trends.
Actually, I got 25.
25.
25 tech trends. And you can get that list, by the way, of going to Burrus, BURRUS.com/see the future.
See the future. And those will be in the show notes at trustedleadershow.com, www.burrus.com/see the future. It'll all be right there in the show notes, and we want you to go there. This is going to be fun. Give us a little overview of those for just 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, the key is we might look at AI, for example. And there is AI, but there's machine learning, which is another category within that. There's a number of categories, and we think, well, it's going to take all the jobs or whatever. But one of the trends that I talk about is augmentation. There's physical augmentation, and there's thought or cognitive augmentation. So how we're going to use AI going forward, and these are hard trends, you're not going to stop them, but you can shape them to your advantage, is that AI is going to be used. Let's give you an example of an oncologist. Right now, AI knows more about oncology than any living oncologist because it's scoured all the material, it's learned all this stuff. It has in that AI, everything about oncology. So if you knew someone who had cancer, and would you want, and they needed an oncologist, I'll give you three choices: a really great oncologist, just AI, or an AI oncologist who has access to AI and can use augmented thinking to treat that human. That's augmented thinking. By the way, another form of physical augmentation is to put on an exoskeleton as a 90-pound nurse and be able to lift a 200-pound person into a bed, which is already happening. So there's physical augmentation and there's cognitive augmentation. That's one of 25. And then I talk about how that's accelerating and how you can make use of it in different industries. That's only one of 25. And by the way, that's a big one.
That's a big one.
They're all, whoa, giant. Take a look.
And you know what? With every one of those 25, there is an opportunity. So everybody needs to go there. Everybody needs to look at those. We need to have you back and go through each of those. But that is absolutely fascinating. So here we go. Let's get to the quick fire little lightning round, Dan. This has been amazing. You have so much to offer, and I know everybody would like to hear more from you, but let's get to it. From the greatest futurist in the world and my friend Dan, what's your favorite book or resource?
Well, somebody asked me what was the book that had the biggest impact for me? And I told them the absolute truth. It was The Little Engine That Could. It was I read it when I was a little kid, and the little engine that could is, I think I can until I know I can. You know what? It's the mirror. Look in the mirror. You'll see the thing that impacts you and that keeps you from. And most of my reading is what most people don't read. I'm reading research. I'm reading global research and innovations and all of that. I mean, to me, that's candy. And so I do, that's my fun reading. And I also like to read like the Asian Wall Street Journal, the London Financial Times, because we live in a big world. I like to read research out of India and other things. So I don't read what most people read because I like to tell people what they haven't heard before.
Love it. Anything you can't live without, Dan? What's something you can't live without? Get to know you personally here.
Oh, well, I can't live without love. I can't live without friends and family. I can't live without community. Those are really, really the key to all of us and to humanity. And I think during these times of COVID, what I've told people that are struggling with it and depressed about it and bummed out about it is they're focusing too much on them. That's why they're bummed out. But if they focus on helping others, they'll find themselves being uplifted. That's a key. So I think, but from another, if you go away from that, one thing that's been a part of my life since I was in elementary school is music. I play a dozen instruments. I put myself through college playing lead guitar in a rock band. So I play every day. I play many instruments. I got a flute right over there.
Yeah. I see the guitar behind you. Yeah.
I got a guitar back here. I got another one over there. So, so music and playing has really been an important part of my life.
One thing back to the community piece also is just, and we say it all the time here, and I think it's a quote early on in my next book coming out, Trusted Leader, that if you're doing leadership alone, you're doing it wrong. And, we see so many people at the top alone, and they're not leading well because of that. And we need each other. We need community. And even though we want to know tech trends and we want to see, look at the future, it all comes back to people and relationships and trust and community. And so I love that, especially from you.
Let me just tag on what you just said that's really important. The same tool that could give you cancer could cure your cancer. Because a lot of people think that technology is evil. Oh, no, they think that there's either high touch or high tech. And I would say that you can bring them together perfectly or leave them apart. So it's not the tool, it's how you use it. What I would like us to do is to use these tools to build a more connected, a more human, a more enlightened future. You see, I'm not so excited about predicting the future as I am excited about empowering people to actively shape a positive future. Because if you're not shaping your future, someone else is shaping it for you. Think about that.
That's a perfect ending piece of advice. But we got to get to our final question, which is...
Okay, there's another one. All right, you got it.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. Final is this. It's the Trusted Leader Show. Who's a leader you trust and why?
People that have trust is earned through honesty, integrity, delivering on promises, and those types of things. And people that try to not waver from that and don't get sucked into the politics and all of those kinds of things, and just tell you, give you here's the facts as we know them. And if there's some new facts, we'll give you those too. And I do think that our medical community has been doing a pretty good job of trying to tell us the hospitals are indeed full. It's not a joke. And this is indeed a real virus. We have to do some things to protect ourselves from it. And so, I trust the science, I trust the technology, and I trust the people that are trying to separate opinion from fact. And because opinions are different, the news shows tend to give us more opinion than fact nowadays, unfortunately. And I'm talking about all of them.
Yep, that's what gets you eyeballs.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, we could do a whole lot more here. And Dan, there's for so many reasons I trust you. You've been an advisor to so many global governments and also just to me. So I thank you for that. I thank you for your friendship. I thank you for the work you're doing to be a positive disruptor. There's so many takeaways here. Future facts and opposites work better, and hard versus soft. So many things you can learn from Dan. Go to burrus.com. Go get the trends at burrus.com/see the future. And, it's been a treat to be here. We want you to keep building trust. And, as we said on the farm growing up, now you got to do the work. That pile doesn't shovel itself. The bales don't bail themselves. You got to go do the work. And trust takes work. Being a positive disruptor takes work. Be a positive disruptor that builds trust. And I think that'd be a home run for all of us. So I'm going to seek to do it. Thanks for inspiring us, and we'll see you next time on The Trusted Leader Show.